What does it take to be a man? It's a question we ask a lot here on this show. And today's guest had to find that out for himself. And Harvey Laguerre has a great story, and he talks about his podcast, Men Are the Prize. We'll talk about that with Harvey Laguerre in just a little bit on the Manlihood ManCast.
Warning, applying these principles may change your life. People will look at you differently. You'll walk straighter, live bolder, and find out who you are. This is the Manlihood ManCast. Here's your host, Josh Hatcher.
Gentlemen, welcome to the Manlihood ManCast. I'm your host, Josh Hatcher. And listen, before we get into today's episode, which is something special, I want to talk to you about three things. Three things. The first of which is our Manlihood Apothecary Beard Oil. If you'd like to order this, go to manlihood.com/store. This is good for your beard. It smells great, and your beard will be luxurious and lovely. So make sure you check out our Manlihood Apothecary Dirty Beard Oil, again, for sale at our store at manlihood.com/store. The other thing is we're working on the Arrows and Iron Brotherhood. We're getting all of the fine pieces together as we get this ready to launch here very soon, and we want to hear from you. So if you want to know what this is all about, if you want the opportunity to level up as a man, to set some goals and accomplish them and have the accountability in the system to work through with it, and to build the connection and community that you need, the Arrows and Iron Brotherhood is where it's done. So just go to manlihood.com/brotherhood and you can sign up there. And the last thing for you is we've got some contests. We've got one contest running right now as we're leading up into Christmas that's coming to you from Haven Designed, which is my brother and his family's Etsy shop. And they make amazing, gorgeous, rustic, handcrafted leather and wood Christmas gifts and ornaments. So we've got a great bundle for you there that is worth $140 plus, I think. That's just amazing. So you want to go and check that out. If you go to manlihood.com/contests, you can enter that contest there, and we'd love to be able to give this away to you. So you want to enter so that we can do that drawing and find out who wins. I can't wait. You're gonna love this stuff. If you want to see what it looks like, again, go to manlihood.com/contests. Now, without further ado, I'd love to be able to get into this interview with Harvey Laguerre right after this. Harvey, it is great to have you on the show, my friend. We've been talking about setting this up for a while, so I'm glad we were able to make it happen.
Likewise, I'm glad I got to speak with you, and thanks for the invite, sir. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Harvey, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and the work that you're doing?
So I am a 47-year-old stay-at-home dad of 4 children. My wife is out there in the world doing well. She's a speaker. She's making money. She's doing things. And I had a job, and they told me one day, we don't really need you to come back ever. So I've been home, and I got attached to taking care of my kids. I got attached to doing the thing that we men are not supposed to do. I kind of got attached to doing what moms are supposed to do. So I got backlash. I'm Haitian, by the way, so I'm a Caribbean person. So in a patriarchal kind of grown-up society, the idea of the man being home and not working threw everybody for a loop. While I was like, these are my kids, I'm a parent, I'm raising them. And I love that. I love taking care of my kids. That eventually leads to what I'm doing now with the podcast and talking to men and such. But for now, 47-year-old dad, I'm home, I'm taking care of my kids. I started a podcast with my wife about 3 years ago. Because of COVID, we're home, and we're like, we should just do a podcast. I mean, everybody else has one. Might as well do one ourselves, right?
That's when everybody started a podcast, right?
Exactly. We figured we had interesting conversations. We don't agree on a lot of things, not even politically. My wife is a libertarian. I'm not. So, we just have interesting discussions. We talk about stuff. But in the end, it's really about our relationship. The podcast is called Love is Black, and it's just our relationship, how we got together. And it was fun for the first season. Second season, we had couples on. Third season, we were just talking about different variations, different parts of love. Fourth season just started a few days ago. But doing that podcast, I realized, you know what? I could do this myself. I want to do my own. So then I started mine, which is called Men Are the Prize. And for me, it was because society is very much like women, put them on this pedestal. Like, I think probably what got it started is that me and the wife would have these conversations, and we're married, obviously. But the whole idea of me proposing to you, I have to create this huge event. I get the ring. I have to do better than your friend's fiance did. I have to do something magical so that you can remember it. And I'm like, what is that? I don't get that. When we get married, I propose, I put my heart out there, I do all of this. I get you as a wife, hopefully, but you get me as a husband. I'm not getting reciprocated. And it was always that women are the prize. And it really hit me that, you know what? I think men are the prize too. I think we're pretty important. I think we're pretty cool. So my podcast, Men Are the Prize, I'm like, I'm going to find men and we're going to talk. And then as I was thinking about it, we don't usually talk. We don't. We're not built that way. We're not raised that way. We're built to take care of the people who talk. We're built to take care of the person who takes care of the kids, who does all that other stuff. We're utility. But we're not allowed to be emotional. And then then we're weak. But then we're not emotional and then we're toxic. And all these things came about. And I'm like, I think all that is bull. But to avoid that, the one thing we do need to do is we need to talk. So I'm like, this is a forum for men to get on here and talk about what's going on in their lives. What's the struggle? What's going on? It was high school. I liked this girl. She didn't like me. She liked the quarterback of the football team. I had anxiety. I felt really bad about myself, low self-esteem. I didn't get the job I want. I didn't get this woman I was interested in, but she liked the bad guy in the bar because he had the leather jacket on and I didn't. I didn't fit what being a man is supposed to be. And these are concerns that we all have, but we don't talk about them. And then it builds up. I wasn't happy as a child. I wasn't happy as a teen. I'm not happy as a 20-year-old. I'm not happy as a 30-year-old. And then I'm 34, 35. I'm married and maybe it's not what I expected. And I haven't said anything to anybody. And then I finally explode. And it can be a multitude of ways. It could be abusing somebody. It can be hurting myself because we men, we attempt suicide at a ridiculous rate in comparison to women. We need to talk. We need to get this stuff out, good or bad. You got to release. So I'm like, men to come on and tell me what you went through and let's discuss. And then using P.R.I.Z.E, which is this kind of acronym that I came up with, P.R.I.Z.E, P is for purpose, R is for resilience. I represents the man, so there's no word. Z is zeal, E is for expectation. To me, each of those words represent a characteristic of a good man. A man who has purpose, a man who's resilient, a man who loves what he does, and a man who expects things of himself is a good man. And when all those characters are put together, the middle, the I, that man, he's a good person. I'm like, let's just talk about it. And that's what it's been. It's just talking about it. And we go through so much. We grow up in abusive households. We've been sexually abused. We've been hurt by women. We've been hurt by men. We've hurt ourselves. And we never have an outlet. We didn't have a release. And I'm like, this is a small opportunity, but it's an opportunity for men to have a release and to normalize it. So the men that listen, hear this guy's talking about what he went through. I don't know. I had addiction. I had ED. I liked this girl, it never happened. My wife cheated on me with some other guy. This crap that happens to us that we just hold inside. And it doesn't work for us. It doesn't work for anyone, but especially not men. So what I do is I talk to men and I'm like, just talk. And I'm listening. I'll throw some questions your way, maybe get a little deeper. But there's nothing better than getting, that weight off your shoulders. It's easier to deal with life when you're not holding on to it by yourself. And like the last thing, and I know I've been ratting on, but the one thing I kind of discovered while doing this, because I'm just starting season 2 and it just came out, is that after talking to men, I realized the one thing is that we're told we're not supposed to be emotional. And we're like, no, we want to be emotional. But who am I emotional to? I asked every man, listen, for, who do you have a friend? Do you have that person right now who's not your wife, not a family member? Do you have a friend who you could call and say, I just did something so stupid and I don't know why I did it. And I'm just hurting my job, hurting my life. I don't know what happened. Do you have the friend to say, you know what? Yeah, that was dumb. What did you do that for? Who would listen to you, who would constructively criticize you, but at the end of the call say, I got you, and hear what you said. And you could leave that call like, damn, that was dumb, but you know what? I'll get past it. It's as simple as a vessel, somebody to listen to you, understand it, tell you just did something stupid, but you're going to be all right. I need a person to talk to. And that's the thing, the biggest thing I got out of this is that if we have someone to talk to, we're better off, because we can't hold on to this. We're human, just like anybody else. So that's the long version of what I'm doing right now.
No, I think that's awesome. I've really appreciated your message, because the era that we're living in, and you hit on this in there. You talked about if we're too emotional, then we're weak. If we're, unemotional, then we're toxic. And that is a fine line. I'm pretty traditionally minded on a lot of things. I'm old fashioned. I get that. But I get so frustrated with the fact that, there doesn't seem to be that balance, of being able to share and talk with what you're going through. And I think, like you said, man, that's killing men. That's killing men.
Mm-hmm. So true. We have so much going on, and as adults in general, we all have a lot going on. But how we're living, we have different situations. We have different factors that affect our lives. I'm a Black male in this country. I have issues that I'm going through that I need to talk about. Women have some issues that, they should have someone to talk to, but it's accepted. It's expected for women. She could just cry and start talking about it. And it's like, it's her feminine side. She's going through a lot and it's released. But if a guy does that, he's judged. Whether he's too much or what's he doing, what kind of man are you, rub some dirt on it, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. And it's imperative that we get this stuff out. It's so important, and it seems so minute, but it's not, because what we hold it in and we don't know what to do with it. And that's why in the end, and I do it on my wrist here is just kind of a scar, because I left for college. I'm 47, like I mentioned. I left for college and I failed out terribly. I went to school and I had way too much fun. And I came back and my dad could not even look at me. He was so disgusted, disappointed. It was just horrid. And I had no one. Because as bad as he felt about it, I was worse. I'm like, I'm a failure. My dad's this accountant, big time. The family's expecting big things from me. I go to school and I fail out. And there was nobody to say, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to do, but whatever. I tried to kill myself. And on my wrist is a scar. Obviously, you can't see it, but it's something I look at every day to remind myself no, it wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it. And I have kids. I have a family. And even though I failed out, life moves on. I got past it. I met a great woman. We have a family. There's always a better side. There's always something else coming. And I didn't have somebody to talk to, but in the end, it worked out for me. I just decided not to go through with it. But there's a lot of men who don't get that. There's a lot of men who start and finish. And we don't want that. We want you. Life sucks. Life can suck a lot, but it doesn't mean you end it. You don't let life end you. You bounce forward instead of falling back. You do better.
Yeah, I think that while we might feel alone, it's really important for us to know and understand that doesn't mean we are alone.
Exactly.
You might not have somebody on deck or on cue right away that you can go talk to, but find it. because there will always be somebody there for you if you need it. You might have to dig for it, but there is that.
That's true. Very much so. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. There's going to be always somebody to listen to you. It may be somebody close or may not be somebody close, but you just need a vessel, just somebody to hear it so that you try again tomorrow.
Harvey, you mentioned this, and I thought it's worth asking. And as I ask this, I want you to understand a little bit about me. I grew up in a small town and still live in a small town. That's a John Cougar Mellencamp song, but I am I don't have a whole lot of Black friends in my life. I have a few that I know. So for me, I don't know a whole lot about what you're experiencing. So when you say you need to talk about it, and I know that like a lot of my listeners, I have a pretty diverse listenership, but I'm going to say the vast majority are pretty conservative. Probably, Spotify doesn't give you race on the demographics, but I'm going to guess, a lot of the men that I've talked to are white, and could also be living a similar experience to me. So I might not know or understand. And so do you mind talking about that? Can we talk a little bit? Let's unpack it a little bit.
Yeah, no problem. So what we're getting at here, I guess the question is what you're wondering what it's like being a Black man in this country. So what my concerns would be. Sure. Now, first, I'm a man just like you are. So all the stuff that we were talking about are issues that that men have.
Right.
So imagine that as a sex, we have that. So that's our thing. Now, add on the history that this country has. Now, we can try to change the title of slavery. We can kind of ignore it. This country was built on the backs of other people making it. Mm-hmm. The reason that we are this monster, the reason that we have this economy is because of the free labor that my ancestors provided. And slavery has since passed, but that doesn't mean how we're treated has stopped. So slavery ends, then it's Jim Crow, then it's how the police treat Black people. And because we have the news, which is not really out there to tell the good stuff all the time, they want to show the bad stuff that happens. And I'm at the point I can't really watch this stuff anymore. But this whole, in the last 10, 15 years where we're seeing these videos of Black men, unarmed Black men, or an occasional armed man being killed, I see myself in those videos. And it's every possible situation. Oh, just comply. Somebody complies, he still gets shot. Just tell them you have a gun. You're licensed because you're allowed to. You tell them that, you still get shot. I'm in a Starbucks, I get arrested. I'm doing anything, and I get arrested. Just being alive, being present feels like it's become a crime. And this isn't new. It's just now being seen. This stuff, it's always happened. Rodney King in the late 80s and 90s, that he was getting his ass beat by cops. They saw the video and they told the cops, that was fine. You can kick his ass, do whatever you want to. Things like this happen. They continuously happen. And now everybody's got a phone with a really good camera. So now we get to see these things. And I think for me, a lot of it is the police are a thing for me. When I see the police, I'm always concerned because people like back the police, back the blue, all that stuff. Remember something. When we in this country, when slavery and just abuse and racism, when all these things are happening, the people who were making sure it happened, who was enforcing it, were the police with hoses on us, with dogs on us. So you can, at the very least, you can understand the concern that we would have, because the people that were helping us be held down was law enforcement. So that didn't go away. So just surviving, just driving my car. Am I going to make it home? I have an 18-year-old son. I shouldn't have to explain to him how to deal with police. He's a kid. He's not trained. I'm 47. I'm not trained. The police are trained. You picked a job where you're going to put yourself in conflict. You should be the one who's not nervous. You should be the one who's going to be safe, who's going to be calm because you've been trained for it. I'm sitting here, no matter who I am, I'm in a car and you come up and you're concerned about your life. That's fine. But I don't have a gun. And most times when the cop comes up, I don't have one. But even if I get loud, if I'm incited, understand the situation. There's this person in front of me with a gun, and I don't have one. It's your job to calm it down, not my job. I'm just being human. You're doing your job. And if you can calm a situation down, if you can treat me like they would treat you, Josh, when you get stopped, that's all I want. I don't want preferential treatment. I want to be treated like a regular white guy would be. He's going 100 in a 60. Cop's going to pull him over. What are you doing? He's not going to assume that you're a criminal. But that's what happens. And I've been stopped and assumed. I'm going to pretty soon start a blog, and the first thing I'm going to release is my situation, because pretty much every black man has had a situation where the cops stopped him for no reason. Mm-hmm. It's fear of surviving. It's fear of just leaving my house, and I live in Florida, so you take that as you will. But leaving my house and not being stopped and not being assumed a criminal and not assumed to be dangerous just because I'm black. And that's what it is. I don't know how they're going to get me, but in my mind, I feel like they're coming. If you can understand that, that's how it feels.
It's actually really important to, like you said, to be able to talk about that, because, I lean more conservative. I probably would agree with your wife on more things politically than you. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
But to be able to hear and listen, I think is something that we need to be able to do, because understanding what you're feeling in that situation is going to help me then when I hear, because you also mentioned the news, dude, the loudest and the ugliest always gets news time. That's you and me. We don't get news time because we're kind and we're good. You know what I mean? So, exactly. They profit when our country is mad at each other and upset and angry and afraid. So right. They're feeding everything and magnifying everything to get the desired effect that they're getting. But there are real concerns and real issues that you've got. And I think that we need to at least understand to be able to listen and work through it. And yeah, I'm glad that you're able to share that with me and talk about it, because like I said, I think that in hearing it and understanding it, it allows me to then not just make the assumptions. A lot of us will make assumptions about somebody, and I'm not making assumptions. I want to make that clear. I try not to do that, but right. A lot of people will make an assumption, about another person based off of what they've heard, what they've been told, what they've seen. Very seldom is it what they've actually experienced or you know what I mean? And so, yeah, that's my hope, man, is that little bit of this conversation, if we can get somebody to at least think about that,
That's, like we always talk about, we always hear in terms of marriages or relationships, communication is key.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing in general with us for whatever reason. I'm fine to talk with you about whatever. You're conservative. I would say I'm a Democrat, but I would say I'm probably in the middle. I'm definitely libertarian. That I don't have a real issue with that. I'm not really trusting of it, but I have conservative values about things and I have democratic values about things. And I think we all do. Mm-hmm. I think to slap a title, Democrat, Republican, whatever, libertarian, it's stupid. I don't think anybody's completely one thing. I'm a little bit of everything.
They want us red and blue when we're all plaid.
Exactly. Yeah, my wife would be like, see, it shouldn't be a two-party system. Libertarian, everybody who wants to run, everybody should be at debate, everybody should talk, everybody should have options. And I respect that. So, and that's true. We're not all, you can't just slap a title on me. I'm a bunch of different things.
I love it. Mm-hmm. So tell me about this being a stay-at-home dad thing. There's been times in my life where I have had that happen, lost a job, been that stay-at-home dad. I've got one left at home. We had 4 kids here, one left at home. and she'll be a senior next year, so it won't be long before she's on her own as well.
Okay.
But what was that like for you, kind of facing some of that backlash and working through that process?
So I lose the job. Now me and the wife are working and we're doing well. We're, both of us are making pretty good money. We're okay. I wasn't loving the job, but I loved what I got from it. Really good benefits, and they were paying me, whatever. So it is what it is. But it was a sales job, and eventually I just wasn't covering what I was supposed to. So they're like, that's what happens. You got to go. So they get fired. And I'm home. Um, and I was kind of looking, but in the meantime, while me and my wife were working, her mother would watch the kids. And since we were both working, she'd come, get the kids ready for school, take them to the bus stop, pick them up from school. So for a while, someone else was raising our kids. And even though it's family, it's not one of us. And I hate the idea of daycare. I don't like it. I mean, it's necessary. I don't like somebody else watching my kids. It should be me or my wife. It should be one of us. So I lose his job, and then I'm like, okay, grandma, you can. She had just retired from her job. She should be relaxing, and she's not. She's dealing with these kids. So I'm like, you're good. And I'm doing it. So I get up. I get my daughter ready. I put together lunch, take them to school when they have events. All these things are going on, sports, whatever, friends hanging out, helping with their homework. Got to scold them when they're playing around. And I'm like, this is somebody supposed to be doing it. And for now, it's me. And then I'm doing it. And then eventually I did an interview or two, but it wasn't happening. And then I'm like, all right, you're working. We're okay. But I'm going to, like, if you're okay with it, I'm just going to do this. She's like, fine. I'm going to do this, because she had a business she wanted to start. So it allowed her freedom, because now she's working, but she wanted to start her own business. So she to travel and do stuff. She can go, and she knows home is okay. And that's just what it progressed to. And I'm just watching my kids grow up, and I'm helping them out, and someone should be there, and it's me. And I'm completely happy to be home and taking care of my kids. Now, family saw that I was working originally. Originally, when we got married, I was working and she wasn't. She had baby. Then she went to school to become a dental hygienist, and then she finished, and then we're both working. But the idea is that I'm supposed to be working. So all of a sudden, they're like, Harvey, when are you getting back to work? No, I'm not getting back to work. Well, no, your wife, Carice, she should be the one taking care of the kids. Well, no, she's not. She's actually working. I'm taking care of my kids. I'm parenting my kids. They have a parent at home. What's wrong with that? They're like, oh, no, it just doesn't seem right. Well, get used to it. I'm their father. I'm not a babysitter. I'm not visiting them. I'm not helping her raise the kids. These are my children. I'm raising my kids. Get used to that. And I am just as much as a man as any one of you, because I'm here with them and I'm supporting them, not financially, but emotionally, physically, in any other way. I am just as important without bringing in a check, but I'm taking care of them. And I take real pride in that. And having these conversations with people, it just brought me, I don't know the right term, but if I wanted to do it even more. Like, I don't know why you think I shouldn't be doing it. Yeah, these are my kids and I'm watching them, and this is what it is. And if you can't handle it, get used to it. You want to play date, you don't call mom, you find me, and we'll see what happens. So people got used to it, but it was still a surprise to them. It just is not something that seemed right. But hey, life has changed. Times have changed. I'm happy to be here with my kids, watching them grow up. So it's something I enjoy. And, times have gotten tough, obviously, between COVID and then the economy. We're kind of struggling at times. I'm like, I think I might have to go back to work and do stuff. But we've gotten to such a system that she gets to go out and work on the business and do things, that she can travel. Like, she's not here now. She's at a conference in Nashville. So the fact that she can just plan this, go, and know that home is taken care of is a benefit. So, times make it a little bit tight sometimes, but then we come back and we're okay. But I'm happy to know that not only am I watching my kids grow, but I'm helping my wife so that she can handle the business, grow it, do what she's always wanted to do. And I get to do something I didn't expect. You asked me 20 years ago, what are you going to be doing? I'm going to be home with the kids. No, that's not what I thought, but it is what it is. And I'm completely happy with being a dad at home.
Yeah. So I think a lot about the fact, I do think that men have in our nature a desire to provide for our families. And I think it's important to know and understand that that doesn't necessarily mean that you're the one bringing home the paycheck. You know, you're making sure your family's provided for. That's what you're doing. It's part of it. So, you know, that there's no shame in that at all. And, you know, now if you were both staying at home and not working at all and not trying to work, and yeah, then somebody's going to have to go to work, you know?
Right. Exactly. Somebody's got to pay the bills.
Exactly.
Definitely. Right. It's an interesting thing. I'm glad to be doing it. I don't know. I don't have anything to say yet.
That's all right. So tell me about parenting in general, man. What lessons have you learned about life as you're doing that process?
So I am a father of one son and 3 girls. So that in itself is an adventure. And it's done a lot for me in terms of recognizing what parenting is and how good or how not good of a parent I can be. But what I've discovered, I think maybe the most important lesson that I've learned is that parenting is not as much as about what I say, but is really about what I do. I am not perfect at all. I think I'm a good dad, but I mess up just like we all do. And my kids recognize that and will be the first to tell me. But what they'll get from me is, I'm sorry, I did something wrong. You were right. I thought you did this. You didn't do this. I thought you said this. You didn't do that. I'm sorry. And what that does is as important as any other lesson I can give these kids. We are all fallible. My dad messes up. My mom messes up. He recognizes that he messes up and he says it to me. He's not acting like whatever I say, do whatever. Children recognize the humanity in us. And when they recognize that we're fallible, it makes it easier for them to live. Because if he messes up, then so can I, and it's okay. And I make it okay for them to see that I mess up. And I apologize for it. And I acknowledge their feelings. And I acknowledge situations that happen. And most of the time, I'm not the one messing up. And most of the time, it's them because they're kids by their nature. But because I acknowledge that I messed up, it's easier for me to acknowledge to them that they have. And they're respected more because it's not this constant, I'm right, you're wrong. So it became important to me that I act the way I want my children to act in the world. For me, my kids are my agents that I send out in the world. My children are that's who I send out. And if somebody knows me and sees my kids, and they see that my son opens that door for his sisters because he's respectful, or they see that my son is just defending of his sisters, that he's not disrespectful, he's not violent, that he is a respectful young man, chivalrous, we could say, or that my daughters are respectful in general, that they're confident, that they're intelligent, that they know how to handle themselves in the world. I'm sending out good people into the world. And that's how I treat parenting. That this is, we're here, but when you're out there, I'm making sure that I'm preparing you to be a good person in the world. And that's how I treat parenting. And so I take care of me. And if I take care of me, I can do a better job of taking care of them. So it's all about, the mask comes out of the sky and I cover myself first so that I can help my kids as they prepare for life. That's what I've gotten out of watching them grow, watching them make mistakes, watching them recognize the mistakes and get better and not do it again, to have dreams, to have expectations, to fail at things, to be disappointed, to have their heart broken, to want to do something, but maybe not finish it, to quit, to do all these things, but to be the person that they can talk to while it's happening. So that when they step into the world away from home, they're prepared. I can't be there for everything, but I can give them, I can give them an idea of how to handle life. And by living the best way I can, I think that's the best job I can do as a parent.
Yeah. It's been very humbling being a dad. You get to the end, they're on their own. I mean, you never get to the end because you're always a parent, but they're on their own and you start regretting, man. And you're like, oh, those things I did wrong. And so I've started trying to make a point to have those conversations with them and say, hey, you remember when I did this? And I wish I would have apologized for it then. It's that's a lot of the stuff. I think that humility, that it takes a lot of humility to be a good parent.
It does. Yeah. You have to know yourself. To be a really good parent, you have to recognize first, and I keep saying fallible, but to recognize that you're not going to do this job perfectly, that you're going to do your best, but you're not going to cover everything. There's going to be some situations that they may not handle the best, and you're going to see it happening, or you're going to see trouble in the distance, and you didn't really prepare them for it, or they handle something the wrong way, and you're like, I should have done better. I should have done better. Why didn't I prepare them? But to recognize your imperfections, but still try. I feel like kids just need you there. Being present is so simple yet important. And not present like I'm in the house with you, but present. I'm in the home with you. I'm in your life. I'm dad, and sometimes I just embarrass you for no reason, but I'm dad and I'm here. It's so important just to have that presence. And I didn't get that growing up. Not really. I lived in the house. My dad wasn't the most present, but he was living there. And there's a difference. And I sadly, when I kind of take time to think about what being a parent means to me, a lot of what I do is the opposite of what I got growing up. I've made a point to not do that, to literally do the opposite. Because luckily I made it out pretty well. I think I'm a pretty good person. It took me a while to get there. My 20s were pretty much a disaster. But once I got past that and I did what I did, I think I'm a pretty good person. And therefore, by extension, a pretty good dad. So it is humbling. You're definitely right about that.
Yeah. Do you find, looking at your upbringing, I know you say you kind of, in your mind, you try to do the opposite of what you had. Do you ever find yourself repeating anything?
The way I talk, people talk about, oh, you're just like your mom, I'm never going to be that. And literally I'm saying stuff and I'm like, Jesus, he said this exact same thing to me. He was probably standing the same way, probably in the same tone. I'm like, good God. It's like ingrained, like it just comes out. You don't even know. I'm like, no, I do not want to be that guy. And it's bad that you're doing it, but it's not even the act that's worse. It's the response. It was bad that he said it, but I know how I took it. And I don't want to do that to the kids. So I feel bad saying it, but I'm like, please don't feel bad about yourself like I did when you said such and such to me. So yeah, I do my best to avoid that. In situations where you have to act quick, instinct just clicks in. And especially when I have 3 daughters, it's important to me that my daughters feel comfortable and feel safe, because they're going to go out into the world and it's a possibility that they all have husbands. And, we say girls look for their dads when they're growing up. I want my girls to recognize what kind of man they should find in their lives and how that man treats them. Me and my wife, we may argue, but we do it separate. No hands are raised. Violence is not even a possibility. My son knows you better not pull that stuff. It's important to me that my girls know how they're supposed to be treated. It's important to me that my son knows how to treat people in general, but especially women, because we're outnumbered in this house. It's me and him and 4 girls. So it's important. Put that seat down. These girls are going it's little things. Like the girls are going to the bathroom. You can't just pee on the seat and just leave it like that. That's not respectful. It's like little things that we got to do. You're eventually going to have a girlfriend or whatever. You think she's going to like that? You can't sit in this room and play Mario Brothers or whatever. I don't play Super Mario all day and whatever. Get out. Do something. It's all just like a fun or not so fun process, but it's important that all of my kids recognize, that I'm here, I'm present, and even if I occasionally falter, I'm going to come back. I'll be better for it, and then I'll tell them why I did it and do my best to not do it again. And it's important that they know.
Yeah, Harvey, I like to ask all my guests a few questions, and as you're talking about your son, that definitely lines up with this first question. I imagine that you're trying to teach him what it means to be a man. So what does it mean to be a man?
What it means to be a man to me isn't that different from what it means to just be a person in general. To be a man is you need to be humble. And my favorite word is empathetic. Empathy is a beautiful thing. We grow up in this world and my kids are spoiled and they've got games and phones and whatever. But if you can understand what somebody else is going through, it makes it so much easier to connect with somebody and to live. To be a man is to recognize life is difficult for us, but to recognize it's difficult for others. Serve other people, help other people in situations where you'd like to be helped if you were in that situation. To be a man is to recognize that you have a certain status, power in this world. We put ourselves in danger all the time. All these jobs that we do, we're underground, coal, we're on these wires, we're doing all this stuff. Being a man means that we're dependent upon. People depend on us to do the physical stuff, the hard stuff, but the emotional stuff too. Being a man means you're communicative, you're loving, you're respectful, you're honest, you're empathetic, and you're present in your life. You take care of yourself. One thing I always do in the podcast when I talk to people, I'm like, what do you do to self-soothe? What do you do when life is just thrown at you? It's impossible. I've got all this going on. I don't know how to handle it. What do you do? Being a man is recognizing when you've reached your limits. And what do you do to not fall apart and take care of yourself? Being a man is knowing yourself, knowing what you want, having standards for whoever you're going to be in a relationship with, including yourself. What are you willing to accept in a romantic relationship? For me, this thing about relationships is I want to be in a relationship where I feel like it's a 50-50 thing. I want somebody to love me as much as I love them. I want somebody to give me as much as I give them. You have value. Recognize your value. You are not here for somebody else. You're to be with somebody else, and you can be a couple, whether it's another man, it's a woman, whatever. But recognize that you're important and don't let anybody take that from you. Feel good about yourself. And when you don't, because it'll happen, open up and talk about it. Don't let that fester, because that's when bad things happen. Being a man is knowing yourself, being comfortable with yourself, and knowing when you're not in the best space, find out how to get out of it and not do it in a dangerous fashion.
Excellent. Excellent. I think there's a lot to take in there. Maybe we could write a whole book. You know, are you working on one?
Yes, I am. I've been trying for a while. Yeah.
Good, because I think there's a lot there. I think you got some good stuff to say about that. So my next question, Harvey, is this. You are standing in a room and ignoring the laws of space, time, and physics. 10-year-old Harvey walks in the room and you've got the opportunity to speak to him. What do you want him to know?
The age that you chose is an interesting one for me, because it's not a turning point, but it's an important one for me. So I kind of talked about, I grew up, didn't have the best household, but my parents got divorced when I was 10. And I had to go to court and I had to testify to who I wanted to live with at 10 years old in front of a judge, which is it's probably the worst memory that I think I've ever had. I shouldn't have to choose who I want to live with. And at that point, my dad became super dad. All of a sudden, we were going to the movies all the time. We were getting ice cream. We were hanging out when that wasn't happening before. So I was kind of being manipulated. So as a 10-year-old who doesn't know any better, I said I wanted to live with my dad, which was a terrible idea because that's not who I needed to be with. So if I got to talk to Harvey, 10 years old, you need to recognize who's been there for you all the time, not just some of the time. Who was there when, I had a hernia surgery when I was 6 months old. I had tubes put in my ears when I was 6. Regular stuff that kids have happen to them. And my mom was there. When I had to need help with homework, it was my mom. When I ran away from home, because I was scared about something, it was my mom and my dad who were looking for me. But recognize not the superficial, because that's what I fell into, the superficial, when it came time to ask who I was going to live with. You got to look deeper. Who was there for everything? And I'm 10. So all this stuff I'm saying, it's not something a 10-year-old is going to be able to pick up. But I would say, listen, in this particular case, who do you, fun is nice, but who's going to take care of you better? Use that as the decision. Use that as the basis for who you decide to live with. Who is there for you more? So sadly, it's not a more fun bit of advice, but a life lesson that I'd end up telling my 10-year-old counterpart.
No, I think that's a very, very powerful experience, and to hear that, because it helps me understand you more. I can see your life. I can see how that decision was monumental in a lot of ways. That's powerful. My next question is this: what is your best advice? And you've given a lot of advice today, so if it overlaps, that's all right. But what is your best advice for the men that are listening today?
The best advice for men. I've been talking to a lot of men, and it's just, I get a lot of different experiences, a lot of different things that we men have gone through. And the one thing I think is most important is you need to know yourself. You need to know you. When you're happy, how do you respond? When you're sad, how do you respond? When you're angry, what do you do? You need to know your limits so that you don't do anything stupid. When you know yourself, not only does it mean you don't do anything dumb, but it means you know what your purpose is. What do I want to do in this world? What job do I want? I'm doing this job. It sucks, but it pays the bills. But that leads to, all right, I'm not happy. I'm making money. Then you're not happy about something else. Then it's a relationship. Then it's not the car that I want. Then it's not the city I want to live in. You need to do what you want, and to do what's going to make you happy, you need to know you. You need to know what makes you happy. What's the job that you would do if money wasn't important? Know yourself enough to know what would make you happy, because when you're happy, you're better. And when you're better, your wife, husband, boyfriend, whatever is going to be happy with you. Know yourself, and know yourself beyond what anybody else thinks. Forget them. Everybody else is secondary. You need to know yourself first. What makes me happy? Does this person make me happy? Does his job make me happy? If you know who you are, then you'll do right by yourself. And when you do right by yourself, you usually do right by everybody else. There's a little bit of selfishness that we're allowed to have. I'm allowed to think about myself. And we don't always do that because we're not raised to do that. We're raised to provide. But are we providing for ourselves? So provide for yourself. Take care of you, fill up your cup, and then everybody else can flow off of you.
That's excellent advice. So if our listeners are intrigued by what they're hearing, if they want to get to know you more, what's the best way to connect with what you're doing?
Let's see. So the podcast, obviously, Men of the Prize, that's every Saturday, and you can find that podcast everywhere. So Spotify, Apple, Google, all that stuff. Every week, a different man, and we get on and we just talk about stuff. And I dig in, ask some questions. As far as men are willing to go, I ask some questions and we talk about what's going on. But now with this season, I want to go into, what are we doing next? So this is the struggle that you have. What next? You figured out the problem. What are you going to do to get the results that you want? And what result do you want? Be open to talk about things. So if you want to do that, if you want to hear that, then you can find me, Men of the Prize. P.R.I.Z.E. is the word. Purpose, resilience, zeal, and expectation. If this is something that you might be interested in talking about, you could find me on Twitter and Instagram at the Velveteen Harv. If you don't know, I'm a wrestling fan. That's where that came from. So So if you want to get to know me aside from this stuff, I'm a Mets fan. I'm a sports fanatic. I'm a wrestling fan, obviously. I love music and movies and stuff. But to get to know me is to know my interests, but to also recognize that I love being an advocate for men. So you can find me on the podcast. I've got the other podcast with my wife. We talk about the relationship, being married. I do another called Bracket Bastards, where we just talk about sports and movies and stuff like that. And it's just us ranting and raving for nothing, but it's just fun. It's just because it's something that I enjoy, right?
Yeah.
So you can find me on the podcast. You can find me on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook by my name, Harvey Laguerre, or Men of the P.R.I.Z.E, the podcast. You can find me there and message me on any one of those social medias. I'm gonna get my website up very soon. I'm gonna start a blog, and I told you kind of what we've been talking about, my experience, and that's gonna be the first release is me kind of talking about that first time that I had that experience with police, and it wasn't the most fun. But you can really get to know me with that one. But if you just reach out, and finally, my email address is Men of Zealous Nature. Because, I love the word zeal. So I slipped that in my email address. So menofzealousnature@gmail.com. If you have questions, if you want to talk about anything, you can reach me there. And that's pretty much it. And if the Mets are playing, I'm probably around a TV or a radio hoping that they'll win. So that's me. That's how you would find me.
That's awesome. Hey, go Pirates, man. Pennsylvania.
Oh, the Pirates. Oh, you had Barry. Oh.
Well, and I grew up as a Cardinals fan. My dad was from St. Louis. And then actually one of my good friends from when I was a kid actually was a pitcher the year that they won the series, maybe about 10 years ago or so. And so I'm actually trying to get him on the podcast, and we've just not been able to touch base, which would be kind of cool. But yeah, so I always had a red Cardinals hat growing up. So
how did you? But you're a Pirates fan now?
Well, okay. So I worked in radio, and I had to board op the Pirates games all the time. So those are my two teams. So I've kind of always rooted for them. And I actually don't even watch a lot of baseball these days because I don't have time. But if I'm going to pick a team to enjoy, it's going to be the Pirates or the Cards. So
yeah, because St. Louis is supposed to be the best sports town there is. Once you're a Cardinal, you're always a Cardinal. So
yeah, that's still
interesting.
Yeah. So in the best games were the Cardinals versus the Pirates, because then you're happy no matter who wins.
Oh, that's good. Exactly. Agreed. I'm a Mets fan and across town of the Yankees, and I want them to lose every game they ever play. But that's not going to happen. So it is what it is. But we were in the same division for a while. Pittsburgh and the Mets. For a while, it was. I don't think when you guys were Central or something. For a while, we had a nice little rivalry going. It was, Mets and Sid Bream running, and just us just sucking because we were terrible. I don't know. Baseball's. I'm one of the few Black baseball fans that I know because
I love it.
I love baseball. I'll talk baseball all day. Separate episode. We'll do
awesome.
That.
Yeah, we'll have to do that. That'd be awesome. Well, hey, it's been great having you on the show, and I'll make sure to link your stuff in the show notes. So guys, we'll check them out. So thank you very much, man.
Thank you so much for your time. Have a good one, man.
Harvey, thank you so much for being on the podcast with us today. Great insights, and I love hearing your perspective on things. I think it's an excellent perspective, and we had a great time. Listen, if you want to connect with Harvey, make sure you check out the show notes. There's some great stuff there where you can link to the work that he's doing. And guys, don't forget about the Arrows and Iron Brotherhood, which is our premium service that we're offering you to help you set goals and accomplish them, to help you build the kind of accountability and community that you need to succeed. If you just want to get connected with us and you're not quite ready to make that kind of investment, make sure that you head over to the Manlihood Man Cave on Facebook. That's our free Facebook group for all men, where we can help each other grow and level up and be better men. We'd love to have you there. Guys, I love you. I care about you. And I'll see you next time.
If you want to be a better man, check out our website, manlihood.com, for blogs, videos, and more from our Manlihood team. Men, you can also join our private Facebook group, Manlihood Man Cave, where you can meet up with a band of brothers who will challenge you and help you on your journey of manhood. This episode's produced by Hatcher Media for Manlihood.com. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you're listening to the show. Tune in again for more of the Manlihood ManCast.